Om. Om. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trilokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravidam Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Just a little instruction on when we chant together. 80% of singing together is listening. Did someone else come in? Jen? Oh,
I'm good. Thank you.
you sure?
Yeah.
So the idea is try to listen and match the pitch, tune into what other people are doing. And some of us, that's more of a challenge than others. I always like to say, if God gave you a bad voice, give it right back to him. So let's go around and do names again, because we had a couple people come in at the last minute. So let's start here.
Daniel.
Melissa, Shilpa, Bhavna, Nupur,
Vinayak.
Deepa,
Finish.
Joanna.
Okay, so we are in the 4th chapter of Gita, the renunciation of action in knowledge. So some pretty outrageous things Lord Krishna has said. He said, I taught yoga to the sun. From the whole lineage of humanity. And Arjuna says, dude, I've known you since you were a kid. What's this about you teaching yoga to the sun? And we need to understand two things. First, this Guru Shishya Parampara, this transmission from teacher to student to the next generation is part of what makes us human. And it's lost in time. And then Krishna says, that knowledge I'm giving you today is that knowledge. So why is this important? And I think I mentioned this last week. A lot of people will say to me, "Oh, Jim, why don't you just teach from your heart? Why do you use these dusty old scriptures?" I'm not smart enough. I use them because they're incredibly powerful. How does it work? So in Vivekachudamani, Adi Shankara says, without knowledge of the self, study of the scriptures is futile. You'll get lost in commentary. You'll get lost in all sorts of different people's opinions about what various scriptures mean and things. And then he goes on to say, with knowledge of the self, study of the scriptures is again futile. Jnani, the person of steady wisdom, has become an Upanishad. Just like you don't need to take an anatomy class to know that you have a human body. If someone were to say, I read a book, humans have 3 heads and 4 arms. Is that true? Deepa, is that true? How do you know this?
I don't see it.
It's not your own body, it's not anybody else's. It's your direct experience. So what's the purpose of the scriptures? The scriptures are a praman, a means of knowledge. They are a setu, a bridge. They become the means by which a teacher can transmit this knowledge to a student. So there's a corollary to this. I would suggest that you mistrust any teacher who's making up their own yoga. In the Vedanta tradition, the yoga tradition, if it works, the teachers keep it around. If it doesn't work, it gets discarded along the way. So after literally thousands of years, we have at our disposal this distillation of spiritual teaching and practice that's incredibly powerful. So hopefully this should give us all faith. So just as Krishna is giving Arjuna the real stuff, know that the stuff you're getting here is the real stuff. This is the same way I learned it from my teacher. Hasn't deviated. Sometimes the examples will change, but that's all. The other way to interpret that idea is, who or what is Lord Krishna? Is he that physical body? Or is this a cosmic Krishna? Is this the self, which is birthless, changeless? So before we move on, I think it's of value to review what I call spiritual anthropology. And the reason being is this. The word Atman is used in Gita, and it's used in various ways, and it doesn't mean the same thing all the time. Who can tell me what the word Atman means?
The soul.
No. Self. Self. You can think, I have a soul. But you are a self. Who sees the glass? That's yourself. You don't get a new self. My problem is not an ontological one. It's not that decrepit, stupid little Jim is going to expand or get merged with God. No. You already are that. What you're looking for, you're looking with. Problem is avidya, which means ignorance. In my mind, I do not know who I am. And as the result of that ignorance, I superimpose upon myself all sorts of nonsense. Did that make sense? So the problem is deeply rooted conviction. That's all based in ignorance. Now, as we go through our spiritual anthropology, I'm going to use the water glass. Hang on, I should turn these lights on so the video people can see better. As a metaphor, the glass is like the physical body. We call this various names: stula sharira, the gross body. Gross here doesn't mean ew, icky. Gross here means a lower vibration. Low notes on the piano are a grosser vibration than the high notes on the piano. The water in the glass is like the sukshma sharira, or the subtle body, also called the antakarana. What's that mean? Inner equipment. It's comprised of a subtle form of the sense organs, the mind, intellect, what we call chitta, which has memory. It also has the flashlight quality. You can pay attention to that, and you can pay attention to this. You can remember something. That's called chitta. And it also has a characteristic called ahankriti, which is the ego sense, sometimes also called karta, the agent. This is a function in the subtle intellect. So all that together, sometimes also they lump in our deep impressions, the vasanas. Other scriptures will separate that out into a karana sharira, causal body. Not important. All of that together is the subtle body. You run around in a dream in your subtle body. Notice in the dream body, you have your senses, you have feelings, you have thoughts, and you have a dream ego. That's the sukshma sharira. That's the transmigrating soul. That's what moves from one body to another. So if the water glass gets cracked, you'll have to just pretend here. I get another glass and I pour the water into another glass, toss this one away. That's reincarnation. You see that? Yourself is like the space in the glass. I'm gonna do a magic trick. You see the space in the glass? Everybody see it? Did I move space? Did I?
No.
Is there space in the glass, or is the glass in space?
It's in space.
Hmm?
The glass is in space.
You got it. Your body, mind, intellect. You are not in the body. Body. You. Let me give you an example we all have. Who had a dream recently? What did you dream?
I had a dream where a very close friend's husband was pissed off at me.
That's good enough.
Yeah.
So, did you have a dream body?
Yeah.
Were you upset that he was pissed off at you?
Yeah.
So, the close friend's husband was outside and you had feelings inside,
Mm-hmm.
and you looked out with your dream senses at the dream world and had an interior experience. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Now, were you in the dream, or was the dream in you? Think.
In me.
Yes. Listen very carefully. You are the God of your dream. If you clearly understand the dream state, microcosm, you will understand the cosmic macrocosm. So just like the dream body and the dream world is in you, what happens? First, you fall asleep. We can call falling asleep mini Maya. Then what happens? Vikshepa Shakti, projecting power. The mind goes, ta-da, dream. And because of the ignorance inherent in falling asleep, when I'm dreaming, I think it's real. Didn't it seem real to you? Yes?
Yes, yes.
You only understand its illusory nature when you wake up. But you, Deepa, in your bed, were untouched. You were completely safe. Nobody was mad at you. Likewise, all the vicissitudes of this world and all the problems that my ego goes through are like a very long and very vivid dream. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, scriptures say. Brahman alone is real. What is Brahman? Brahman is consciousness. Prajnanam Brahma. Jagan Mithya. Jagat, the phenomenal world, is Mithya, an illusion, a lie. Well, so what? Don't take it quite so seriously. Just like you can be very upset with a stressful dream or a nightmare and you wake up, oh man. But then you know, whew, it was just a dream. So this jnana abhyasa, this practice of knowledge, invites us to remember Brahma Satyam, Jagan Nitya. Brahman alone is real. Phenomenal world, the picture show, it's a hologram. And the ground of being is never touched by. So when the scriptures talk about, I remember all my prior lives, we dealt with that last week, you don't. Just as if you were to remember all the dreams you've had in the past week. Were you in any of those dreams? Or were they? So Atma, the word, simply means self. It gets much clearer 700-800 years later. But at the time Gita was written, it was a catch-all. Sometimes it even means the physical body. Sometimes it means the transmigrating soul, the subtle body, the inner equipment. Sometimes it means ground of being. Upanishad's thunder, I am Atma, Brahma. This self is Brahman. And Brahman is Kutastha. Kuta can mean a mountain or it can mean an animal. Sta means it's like we get the word established or stand from the same root. Self is immovable like a mountain. It doesn't change. The self does not really incarnate. Why is this important? Because again, it's not about becoming anything. It's not about achieving anything or acquiring anything or attaining anything. It's about thinning the mind enough and letting go of what agitates the mind. Tense vairagya, that desire to give up attachment to all experiences gained through the senses and any idea of self, starting from the body up to including Brahma, the creator. I want to be a powerful person. All those have to be dropped. All ideas of self have to be dropped. So that the mind becomes still. Chitta should be a pure mind, a sattvic. So you can begin to see the space between your thought. Mind turns out. Then with the attentive faculty, introverted. Who am I? Oh my God, there's nothing there. That's correct. Yet it shines as I. But that I is nirupam. I have no qualities. Nirmalam, without any taint or dirt. Achalam, it never. Don't believe me. Certainly don't believe the scripture. Look. So why do we have yoga asana? Why do we chant the name of the Lord? Why do we practice our yamas and niyamas and all those things? All of these are various ways to achieve quiescence of mind, stillness of mind. So when the attentive faculty is turned within, notice. All right. So this is where all of this chapter is pointing. Any thoughts or questions before we get directly into scripture? And what verse are we on again?
7.
7?
Yes, 7.
Could you help us out, Deepa?
Yada yada hi dharmas. Sorry.
She's rusty. She hasn't chanted for a month.
No, also, the next two shlokas appear in the television remake of Mahabharata, and the tune is so deeply ingrained in our psyches that I was just
Go ahead.
launching into that.
Use that tune if you want.
I'll try. For fun. Okay. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanirбhavati bharata abhyuthanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya ch dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. You remember the tune?
Yes. Pretty good.
Sorry, the high notes, I just lost it, but yeah. So I read 2 shlokas together and I read the English as well. Whenever there is a decay of righteousness, O Bharata, and a rise of unrighteousness, then I manifest myself. For the protection of the good, for the destruction of the wicked, and for the establishment of righteousness, I am born in every age.
Yes. So there's layers of meaning. Of course, the exoteric understanding. It is our yearning that invokes the incarnation of the avatar. But let's step it down to something even more personal. I'm sure many of you heard when the student is ready, the guru appears. The locus of intention for sadhana is not the guru, it's the shishya. Let's step it down even one more nitty-gritty level. You may have friends, or yourself may have been around the block with this, who've suffered from something like alcoholism or addiction. And what happens when unrighteousness increases, meaning I have totally bottomed out. When I get sick and tired of being sick and tired, I get beaten into reasonableness. Then the salvific principle, the Krishna in me starts to seek a solution. Now, it's not just with addiction. It can be in a relationship. If we have a dysfunction in a relationship and it's so painful, at some point we get beaten into reasonableness. We start seeking some help. We start to let go of needing to be right or controlling the situation or blaming the other person. Or at work, talking with a fellow past couple of days, one of the things he's struggling. All my coworkers and my boss, they're all so mean to me. Okay. He's suffered enough that he's starting to be able to say, okay, what's my part in this? What's my part in this? I call this a salvific principle, a principle that occurs in the human mind that leads us towards salvation. We could say moksha, liberation. It's freedom. Another way to phrase it, it is theoretically possible to enter into the spiritual path and do intense sadhana out of inspiration. However, that's not how most of us get here. My life is working well, living a life that's extroverted into the world of sensory experience. Why in God's name should I want to try the spiritual path? We tend to move towards the spiritual path because we're tired, we're at an impasse with our suffering. When it hurts bad enough, I become open to a solution. So all these layers are implied in these two verses. And in the Mahabharata movie or series, was it a series?
TV series.
Yeah. They use it because it's really important stuff. Any thoughts on this process? So, one of the things we don't have to worry about, you can't fall off the path. Oh my God, I'm afraid I'll be a fallen yogi. Don't worry. Guess what happens if you start to deviate from the Sanatana Dharma? What happens to your life? It becomes painful. It's really simple. There's no God who's punishing you. We are not punished for our sins, we're punished by them. Somebody goes out dancing in the clubs with their friends and gets totally hammered on Friday night, makes a total ass of themselves, wakes up Saturday morning and they feel, no, God is punishing them. They're getting the inevitable results of the actions they took. So we embrace our suffering as yogis. That is our guru. That's the face of Krishna. When it hurts bad enough, then I'll start looking for solutions. If nothing changes, nothing changes. Any thoughts? Next verse.
Janma karma cha me divya nevam yo vetti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti sorjuna. He who thus knows in true light my divine birth and action, having abandoned the body, he is not born again, he comes to me, O Arjuna.
So again, we see how Gita teaches on 3 levels. First, it's a Dharma Shastra, gives us how to behave in the world. Then we can be identified with Arjuna as the mumukshu, the seeker after of liberation, the eternal yogi. Or we can read it identified with Lord Krishna. What Krishna says about himself is true about the self in you. If you want to know Krishna, find out who you are. So with that in mind, let's dig deep into the shloka. So the first part of it, please.
He who thus knows in true light my divine birth and action.
Okay, so much here. So does Krishna actually ever take birth? My divine birth. So when we look at the iconography of Indian deities, almost always there's a male figure and a female figure. Ram and Sita, Krishna and Radha, Shiva and Shakti, I'm going to use that name for the spouse. If you look in front of the Murti of Lord Shiva, you'll see a little Shiva Lingam. Do you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Let's pass it around. So there's 2 parts of it. We've all seen this figure. So you've got the Shiva Lingam, which is like a penis. And where is it implanted?
Yoni.
A yoni, yeah. Which is what? A womb. Send it back there. So
We see it.
did Ashley, let me put it up there for the people there. So you see it, here's the Shiva Lingam, and then it's in this kind of trophy thing that always has like a spout where the when they do a abhisheka, it runs off. But it's a womb, it's a vagina, is what it is. Pass that back.
Thank you.
So the idea is this: Maya is co-eternal with the infinite. So consciousness itself forks into what we call Nirguna Brahman, Brahman without qualities, Saguna Brahman, Brahman with qualities, Shiva, Shakti, Krishna, So we talked about that scriptural statement, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, Brahman alone is real, the phenomenal world is unreal. Well, we also have from Chandogya Upanishad, one of my favorite mantras, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. Sarvam Idam. This is shop talk. Means all this. When the scriptures say that, that means the phenomenal world. Kalu, verily. All this is verily Brahman. And make up your mind. Is it illusion or is it Brahman? Yes. So it is the nature of consciousness to have this phenomenal world appear in it. We have so many interesting terms. Pratibimba. It's pratibimba.
Reflection.
A specific kind of reflection.
In water, is it?
In water or in a mirror. Bimba is a mirror, pratibimba is the reflection in a mirror. So I can go into the bathroom, wash my hands, and there's this really old guy in the mirror. Shilpa can go in. Very, very attractive young lady in the mirror. Has the mirror undergone any change? If I go into the bathroom, will I see Shilpa there? The mirror light Shilpa captures the reflection. No. It is the mirror itself, because of its swabhav, its inherent nature, that appears as the pratibimba. The bimba appears as the pratibimba. Yet the mirror undergoes no change. So also, Krishna is the ground of being, the whole universe. The whole universe appears in Krishna. But Krishna does not undergo a change. Just like an entire world appears in your mind in the dream, when you're there safe in your bed. So it isn't that Krishna's up there in the sky going, I think I'll make Jupiter today. Oh no, I think I'll make Saturn now. Doesn't mean that. Doesn't mean that. And when it comes to you and me, the deepest teaching of the Upanishads is the doctrine of ajati. What does ajati mean? Unborn. Truth is, at the moment of self-realization, you see, oh, I never was born. I've always been this birthless, changeless, eternal being. I was just deluded. It's like deep hypnotism. Okay, next idea.
Having abandoned the body, he is not born again.
Yes. So the yogi who starts off being identified with the personality. My favorite term for this, I've shamelessly stolen from Gaudapada. Gaudapada was the guru of Govindapada, who was the guru of Adi Shankara. We get this phrase in the Mandukya Upanishad Karika, and it's Jiva Bhavana. Bhavana means a feeling or an attitude. Jiva means like a personal sense of self. Some scriptures, some teachers talk about the jiva, back to the idea of the soul, transmigrating soul. But it's not an entity. That's the thing. It's a kind of thinking. It's a kind of thinking. You may have had this experience, or you may know somebody who the inner dialogue, the video, the tape going on in their head is, I'm terrible, I'm worthless, I'm a failure, I'm no good. Who's had thoughts like that in their head? And then one thing that modern psychology will try to do is replace that ego thought with a good ego thought. Oh, I'm good looking, I have value, I'm loving, I'm smart, I'm kind, I'm successful. But yoga says in the end, that's not going to solve the real problem. It's putting a band-aid on the issue. Because the problem is, this jiva bhavana is not an entity, it's an event. And the classic image, the classic metaphor the scriptures use is a flame. So if you see an oil lamp, or modern day we use candles. So if we're in a windless room and I light the candle, the flame looks like it's a thing. But we all know a flame is an event. It's the constant oxidization of gases. It's not solid. You take a picture of the flame, that's just a moment of the flame in time. So this is why it's always problematic. Well, who are you really? What'll I do? I'll describe my parents, my relationship with my family, my clan, my culture, my politics, my sexual orientation, my job, where I live. And all of that is constantly changing. No wonder we're neurotic. Because we're trying to secure something that isn't real. Do you see that? So the scriptures have this wonderful term. If I can see the ego sense for what it is, if I could see it, that means it's something other than me. Let me see if I can give you an example of the experience of that. Are any of you performers or have to give presentations at work and get stage fright, performance anxiety? Who's had that? And then at other times, you're by yourself and you may be walking in nature or making music or making love or doing something you enjoy and there's no self-consciousness with a small s. Who's had experiences like that? So you have seen ahankara, egoism, thicken and thin. Do you see that? If you can see it thicken and thin, you're not it. You're the one who's seeing it thicken and thin. Does that make sense? So we begin to see ahankara, this jiva bhavana, as another object of perception. Now, another name the scriptures use for this phony self, this fake self, is chit chaya. What does chaya mean?
Shadow.
Shadow. What's chit? Consciousness. It's a shadow self. So if it's the afternoon of a sunny day and you're outside, you're walking along the sidewalk and you see a long shadow. But if it's a cloudy day and overcast, where did your shadow go? Oh. Or if there's a shadow here of the glass, if I got out a flashlight and shined it on the shadow, what happens to the shadow? It disappears. So also this fake self, this phony self, this ahankara, this jiva bhavana, if you go looking for it in a mind made very quiet, in the space between your thoughts, with the attentive faculty turned within, oh, who am I? It falls. Something disappears, but you are still there. Chidakash, the space of pure awareness. Where did the ego go? It's like if I have the lamp with the candle and I go, blown out. Anybody know what the word is in Sanskrit for blown out? Nirvana. It's not a place you go to. It means blown. All that struggling to try to secure, protect, defend, justify, rationalize self, it's gone. Your self needs none of it. What are you doing, Jim? I'm shining space. It's nonsense. So we have to go from paroksha jnanam, indirect knowledge, which you hear from the teacher of the scripture, to aparoksha jnanam, direct. How? Meditate. Viveka. Discriminate between the real and the unreal, the self and the non-self. And vairagya, intense detachment and dispassion. At an auspicious moment, when the mind has become quiet, you begin to get these intimations. Who I am is this prakash, this light of pure awareness. When the scripture says they're not born again, yes, for the realized soul, the cause of reincarnation is gone. But there's a much more visceral interpretation of this. Once I realize my essential nature, then when the mind tries to throw up some phony idea of self, I see you for who. I'm going to go down that path. Chidanandarupaham, Shivoham, Shivoham. My nature is bliss consciousness. I'm Shiva, auspiciousness. Over and over and over again. Till the mind becomes convinced. Not because of the repetition. It's more about undoing the deep, deep hypnosis that I think I'm the body. I think I'm the person. With this aparoksha jnana, this direct experience, this is moksha. This is liberation. This is what frees us from the funny farm of samsara. Any thoughts on this? It's very deep and subtle shloka. Now, Shankara has a wonderful metaphor. You have to imagine you're in South India and the ladies are coming down to the tank that's next to the village on the river to get potable water to take back up to the houses. And the tank is covered with algae. And they leave the algae because it eats the bacteria, so people don't get sick. So the ladies put down the jars and then they go like this. And then you see the clear water. And they dip the jars in the water. And then they put them on their heads. Usually have like a little ring that they put them on. They don't even touch them. They just, and they walk back to the village. These skinny little necks, they these great huge jars. But the tank, the algae goes, covers it up again. So that's what happens for you and me. Here in satsang, minds get quiet. With the praman of the scriptures, our attention gets turned back upon ourselves, our essential nature. We see it's true. I am Atma Brahma. This self is Brahma. Swamiji used to say, the students leave the Vedanta on their asanas when they go back to their course. The stimulus of the world comes back, and I forget. First comes the veiling power. non-apprehension of myself as Brahman, then the projecting power. I think I'm a person and I got issues. It seems so easy. All right. Next verse. Any questions about what I've said so far? How are you doing? This is pretty new stuff for you, Joanne.
Good. I think that what's really standing out for me tonight is your demonstration with space and the water, and the question of the human body and its purpose. And I think that's brings me back to what I also learned in India. Yeah. And yet, as you mentioned, the call of the details of the world are so profound and riveting, it's difficult to remember.
Well, I didn't make it up. Shankara calls it Gatakash. Hot space. I just didn't have time. Very standard image. Good, good. All right, next verse.
Vitaraga bhaya Vitaraga bhaya krodha manmaya mamupashritaha bahavo jnana tapasa bhutamadbhava magataha. Freed from attachment, fear and anger, absorbed in me, taking refuge in me, purified by the fire of knowledge, many have attained my being.
Okay. One of my favorite was, I have so many good ones in this chapter. I will tell you one of the ideas that keeps people from self-realization. Especially in India, there is such a reverence for the saints, such a reverence for the Mahatmas, the men and women of realization, that there's the deeply rooted idea, not me, maybe 7 lifetimes from now, I'm not worthy of it. I'm too full of impurities and desires. I'll just lead my worldly life and go to the temple on occasion or do a little puja. Very common. One of the good things about Westerners, we don't have that. Nobody told us it's hard. And Krishna here says, it's available. Many attained my being. I tell you, self-realization is not difficult, but it's very rare. It's not rare because it's difficult. It's rare because nobody wants it. We'd rather play with the poop of the world rather than this. It's that simple in the end. Because here is the necessary condition. So let's parse the verse again from the beginning.
Freed from attachment, fear and anger.
Yeah. So, sangraha, attachment. Why am I attached to the world? It's because I have superimposed on the world the bliss of my own self-nature. Many of you see me do this so many times. So the little prayer stone here is a stand-in for whatever it is I think I want. It's going to make me happy. A partner, a job, more money, a house. And I determine that it's dear, priya. It's the first stage. We all want different things. What do? I get proximate to my object of desire, moda. I earn it, I buy it, I seduce it, whatever. I get proximate to the object of desire. Start to get happy. And then when desire and object of desire become one, oh yeah, point of pleasure, pramoda. And in my ignorance, I think the object of desire has inherent ananda. This is where the happiness is. In truth, it's the jonesing, the longing, the spriha itself that's so painful. All I've done with this process is momentarily free my mind from the tyranny of longing. Happiness isn't in the object. Chidananda Rupaham, Shankara says, my self-nature is bliss consciousness. Let me give you a worldly example. Back to our frequently used example of the addict or the alcoholic who's suffering so badly and is convinced if you had my problems, you'd drink too. And then may go through a period of self-will. I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to drink. What those of us on the program call white knuckling. And they make themselves miserable and most of the people around them miserable and most of them. For God's sake, have a drink. But if you get into real recovery, something happens. The desire to drink is removed. For those of you who've been down that road or know friends who have it, there's no controlling. Oh, you're so strong. Oh, the problem's been removed. That's freedom. So this is freedom that Brahmananda Rasa Swad gives us. Swad means what? Taste. What's rasa?
Juice.
So Brahmananda Rasa Swad means what? Tasting the juice of the bliss of Brahman. This is why meditation is so important. We begin to experience causeless, objectless peace. A peace that's independent of the world. And then these compulsions start to fall away. Start to fall away. The ignorance falls away. When I own my own ananda, then the attachment to the world falls away. I think we talked about this last week. Krodha, anger. The definition of anger in Vedanta is thwarted desire or unmet expectation. All of that's rooted in attachment. So we learn to practice surrender, let go, with a clear, direct experience, understanding that Shanti, peace, is my essential nature. Anand is my essential nature. I just muck it up with attachment. Now, those habits are very powerful. And earlier, Krishna has said the person who gets rid of the objects of desire but lets the desire remain behind is verily a hypocrite. Doesn't work. But the desire leaves them upon seeing the Supreme. Provided with a spiritual experience. And then the tyranny of attachment, of kama craving starts to fade. All right, we'll end here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha.